Good evening. Welcome to Select Board and Sewer Commissioners meeting, September 7, 2022. This meeting is a hybrid meeting. Zoom information is on the agenda. Roll call. Everyone is present except Mark. Public comments. Is there any public comments? I don't see nothing, so we'll move on to the approval. Next agenda item is approval of the minutes. July 6, 2022, regular session.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Is all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
I meant to say aye.
Yeah, motion pass. July 6, 2022, executive session.
Not to be released. I
Not to be
apologize,
released.
it's not on
Yeah.
there.
Not to be released.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passed. July 19th, 2022, regular session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passed. Review and vote to approve warrants for the period covering August 18, 2022 to September 7, 2022. That you want?
I'll make a motion to approve the warrants as printed in the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion pass. Mark is on Zoom. You want to tell? Mark, you are on mute.
Oh, I forgot to ask you.
I'll be there in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Mark is joining through the Zoom and he will be here. So next one is Historic Commission, Beverly Goodale. Boston Post candidate Rita Mirante, 102 years young, on September 17, 2022. Do we need to wait?
Is Beverly coming?
Beverly called me at the last minute, something came up and they're not able to do that at this meeting and requested we push it off to the next meeting.
Okay, let's table it.
Thank you.
Kevin Duffy, you are.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. Wanted to bring forward to you, back in August, Town Administrator's Office and myself worked together to put out the sanitary sewer system operations and maintenance RFP. Previously that had been Weston and Sampson on a 3-year contract. They were the only person who submitted a proposal. I have reviewed that. I found the submission responsible and responsive. There's some minor comments that I forwarded to Jim as he's finalizing the contract, Jennifer will be finalizing the contract moving forward if you approve. Overall, the year 1 of the proposed versus the year 3 of the previous contract is an 8.75% increase in cost. That's both right now we're seeing significant inflation hitting everything, as well as just, even though by sewer standards 20 to 25 years is a relatively young system, it's still starting to age, it's starting to have the impacts. There are more calls and more responses that they're providing. So that 8.75% is kind of a combination of there's more for them to respond to, as well as just the general environment right now.
Okay, thank you. Do we need to take a vote on this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
The only concern I have is, year and year, we get only this company. That's the only company we have.
Right.
Is there a way we could make it attract more companies?
2 cycles ago, Mr. Chairman, you did have a competing bid that came in higher. I believe the engineering company was from Texas, and their price proposal. I've only gone back 2 cycles. Weston and Sampson has been doing this since 1995. with the town, and in fact design the system themselves. And but I only went back to 2 prior cycles, and I think it was 2 back that there was a Texas company that bid. When we issued the invitation to bid, there was a pre-proposal conference that was held. And I think, did we convene in your office and moved off from there, Kevin? To various locations around town. And the bidders or interested parties were supposed to call, and say that they were coming. And Weston and Sampson was the only company to do it. And that was, I used that day to make that one of my first onboarding exercises with Jennifer, the incoming town administrator, because we went out to various, pumping station locations and things like that, and frankly, that's a pretty good opportunity to see what's out there. Weston and Sampson were the sole bidders. Kevin, who is procurement certified, and we were working with this. We had separate price proposals and operational proposals. We looked at the operational proposal, and before we opened the price proposal. In fact, before we opened the price proposal is when I asked Kevin, officially, and he did send me email confirmation that it was what is it? Responsive, yes. Responsive and responsible to the, true to the invitation to bid. And then we opened the price proposal after that. And all things considered, 8-point-something%. The prior year's increase was 4.3%. And it's tied to the Boston Consumer Price Index. Per our invitation, Exhibit E of our invitation to bid, pegs that at years 2 and year 3 of these 3 years deals at the Boston CPI. So I wouldn't be surprised to see another bump, in year 2, perhaps a lesser one in year 3. I suspect, but this is the deal. And you all have a history that neither Kevin nor myself have here, but as I've asked people, Weston and Sampson has been a pretty good custodian of the system when you consider, the responsibilities that they have. So,
just in addition to that, they have a lot of their operators are local. One of the main points that we require is that you have somebody who can respond within 30 minutes of a call-in or an emergency. They have that. The folks who have been part of their team since the late 90s are still part of the team. They're a really deep bench for us, so they have been a good resource and they have done a good job.
That's a good point. And Tom Frost is a West Boylston resident, and he's the lead dog.
Yes, and also, so I would recommend that we do award this for 3 years to Weston and Sampson. I think it could be considered for a shorter award period. That was how you felt about trying to get other bidders, but my recommendation is certainly for 3 years.
Any further questions?
I have just one question. There's a comment about the inadequate insurances that we had. I'm assuming we're going to purchase that on our own instead of getting force-placed insurance from this comment. How much additional cost is that? Do we know? Do you know that off the top of your head?
I do not.
Considering we got one responsive proposal,
Yep.
I'll make a motion to award the contract to Weston and Sampson for 3 years.
Second.
Yeah, motion second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose?
Can you just get me that number on the insurance at a later date, please?
Would you make none of that? Thank you.
Motion carries. Malden Street paving concerns. Chris?
Just wondering, is that project finished now?
No,
Okay.
that is not finished. I know the request was for this to be on the agenda Thursday. Tuesday of last week, I had emailed Eversource. It was time for we get together about once every 2 months to just go over everything that they're doing in town and just making sure everything's getting done. That is on their to-do list. They haven't gotten it done yet, so that was something in my email from Tuesday. I met with them earlier today. The plan is to have a landscaper come out tomorrow or Friday, and they should be able to do the trench restoration next week, is the current plan as of today.
So all of the bumps and will all be fixed with them guys, with
Yes.
Eversource?
Yep.
Okay. We'll wait, so, yeah, okay, we'll wait and see.
I think they got the message. This is, I've had to remind them a number of times, so.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that concerned me when you said that the 5 years is up, so, you know, the roads, they're out, they started the project when it was still within the 5 years, and then it finished when they were outside of the 5 years, but it still should fall under the rules from when they start the project, correct? That they have to do
Yes,
everything?
and per the regulations, it's 2 years or to the end of the moratorium, whichever is more. So if somebody were to come in and had to do this work in year 2, they actually have to cover it through the end of the moratorium, which is 5 years.
Okay.
So it's 2 years, the end of the moratorium or 2 years. So yeah, they still are responsible for their 2 years. I know there was another trench that was not Eversource they did restore that trench. The developer himself did that work. But the other ones are the responsibility of Eversource, and they have no objection to doing the restoration.
Yeah, because the trench that was dug on Franklin Street, you know, I think they did it correctly. So many feet across the whole road, you don't feel any issue when you drive over that. So I mean, these here were small trenches, but you're saying they're fixing that.
Yeah, and similar on Church Street, they had done work last year. So I had them come back this spring, and they did more of that 8-foot wide
Okay.
restoration. It looks really good. They did that in June. It's best to give it a winter for settlement, if possible.
Okay.
So do you think they will finish it before the snows?
Yes, I'm not worried about that. I will
Okay.
be more on them for the next,
So I do have one other question to ask you, but you don't have to answer right now. So in Malden Street, how far we can allow the sewer lines or sewer connections? Maybe you could explore some of those things at later meetings. Malden Street.
Oh, for your roundtable meeting?
If you need it, I can send you an email.
yeah, any details that would help.
Yeah, I could send you an email.
About
Any other question for Kevin?
Have you had any news about the railroad crossing at West Boylston, almost into Boylston, where they're replacing the rails? They're doing a lot of work there. Are they going to do anything to the crossing too?
They will be. Jim, if it's okay, I did get
Yeah, please
an
do.
email earlier this week. They are planning that work. We just returned their street opening permit to do that work. It's currently scheduled for October 1st and October 2nd, a Saturday and Sunday. All 3 crossings here in West Boylston are getting new rails and new crossings. Probably a trench width, if you will. I don't know the extent that they're working within their easement, but that work is scheduled for at that time.
Is there some standard that we can, expect when it's done? I mean, like other places, the crossings are perfect, but other places they are not. I'm just wondering what the standard they have to work to is. Is that if there is
There really isn't, due to interstate commerce rules and regulations. They kind of, unfortunately, go by largely their own sets of rules and regulations. I had those conversations with them last fall.
Right. Because I mean, you see there's some crossings that have like a plastic insert that kind of evens it all out and is really nice, but it's just right now it's treacherous, it's pretty.
Yeah, they are planning to make improvements end of this month.
Usually when they do it, it comes out good. The question is how long it lasts.
Yeah, my understanding is this is
Usually great for the first.
That's it.
this is a more permanent restoration, and I know last year they had done some over a weekend without telling anyone, and that didn't go. They didn't leave it in.
Right, so that's what I mean, the last work.
This is more planned. It's for a permanent restoration.
Okay.
I don't mean to belabor this, Mr. Chairman, but I've observed over the years that Sometimes people like a difficult crossing because it's traffic calming.
Slows down.
You know, yeah, you'll have people in the same neighborhood glad that it slows traffic down, and their next-door neighbors, you know, hate the sound of larger vehicles clanging over it. So sometimes you just can't make anyone happy, you know? Yeah.
And just the only other question I have, and again, you know, I wanted to get it on the agenda, but I didn't, the playground. Is it going to open this soon?
We're moving forward with the resources that we have available. I can provide
Yeah, if we can get, maybe if we can get an update in a couple weeks, since it's not going to, doesn't sound like it's going to be open in the next few weeks. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Next agenda item, new business, semi-annual town meeting preliminaries.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, we sent out directives to all departments, boards, and commissions with soliciting articles or budget amendment requests or bylaw requests. The submission deadline was last Friday at noon, September 2nd, and on the schedule, and as promised, we have a listing for you of the articles that have been submitted. Many of them are very familiar to you. It's part of your fall town meeting template. I'd just like to give you a very quick summary of what we have so far. Now, the warrant won't close until the end of the month, according to our schedule, and you do have scheduled for your next regularly scheduled selectmen's meeting on the 21st, a joint meeting with the FinCom and other boards and parties of interest in the warrant. So Article 1 is to hear the reports of the offices and committees of the town. Article 2 is, and these numbers could change, the numbering sequences could change. Article 2 is authorization to pay bills from prior fiscal years. We haven't identified any of them yet, happily. Article 3 is proposed modifications to the fiscal +23 operating budget. And I've been working very closely with Fay and Leslie in the departments involved in that. We've also had, Mr. Chairman, 2 meetings with the chairman of the FinCom going over these preliminaries, and we've also linked. We opened an email account for the incoming town administrator, and she's linked with the FinCom chair as well. And I should say, this document also last week was forwarded to town council just to put them on alert. So all the ducks are, we're putting all the ducks in a row here. Article 4 is to authorization to amend the personnel bylaw. I guess what was missed in the spring meeting was picking up fire department personnel in your personnel plan, specifically the compensation portion of that model. So that's to pick that up. Article 5 is, I guess you refer to it as the Uber article.
If I could go back to Article 4, does that mean
Sure.
from July 1st to now, they have not gotten their raise?
That is correct.
Is that going to be retroactive?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yep, both. Thank you for asking. Article 5 is the so-called Uber fund. I think last year you had $700 and some odd dollars. I think you're getting $800 or so this year. You bought street signs with it, with last year's money, I guess. I guess they're taxation proceeds from Lyft and Uber. The capital improvement budget, 2 departments tuned up their capital requests, and I know that there's some added ones from DPW. It was DPW and the fire department. Also part of our onboarding of the fire chief, I think I reported this to you at the last meeting, prior to the Friday, September 2nd submission deadline, Chief Sadowski and myself and Leslie sat down with the FinCom chair and went over protocols and procedures and things like that so that he could make his submissions on a proper basis. So they'll be merging, these requests with, their existing capital plan and how things are queued up, and, let's see what happens. The FinCom is meeting on Monday evening, and Faye and Jennifer have committed to attend that meeting as well. Article 7 is authorization to purchase a replacement ambulance. This, conventionally speaking, you might think is a year early, but the lead time that there is involved now necessitates consideration of this thing now. You might get delivery in about 30 months or so. In the ambulance reserve for appropriations account is pretty healthy, and and can manage that. I think you make annual contributions or set-asides.
FinCom dialed in on that as well?
That was one of the items of discussion with Chief Sadowski and Chris, yes, indeed. I plead ignorance on Article 8. I think it was a late submittal, authorization to purchase a shed for the softball field. Article 9.
Relates, you don't have.
Oh, I don't mean.
Get details on it.
We can certainly provide details for you, like beginning tomorrow. But I was.
Their estimates is their cost, why are we buying the shed, all of those questions.
I can
sure.
speak to that a little bit.
Sure.
The Parks Commission came to the CPC to replace the shed that's on the softball field.
There isn't a shed.
There's one there, but when Phase 2, and I'll let them explain it better than this, when Phase 2 of the project to fix to fix Pride Park, to make it handicapped accessible happens, that shed is going to be in the way. It was not an allowable purchase with CPC funds. It's to store softball equipment, and I believe also to store some DPW equipment, a golf cart type is one of the things. That's the extent of what I know, but that's the
So the other shed you're talking about is the building that's there, not a shed?
right, the white,
Okay.
yes,
The building in front.
correct.
Okay, so yeah, I appreciate that. That's the information I knew. I just, I need to have more
I
details.
don't have the price.
And I don't know why we need it. Again, if it's Phase 2, let's wait till we get to Phase 2 before we buy a shed. So let's get some information on that.
Continue?
Right?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, Article 9, authorization to appropriate funds to the OPEB trust fund. Article 13, authorization to appropriate funds to reduce the tax rate. Article 14, authorization to transfer funds to the capital investment fund. And Article 15, authorization to transfer funds to the stabilization fund. I understand your finance policies have formulas all built in, and what do you do with free cash? I can report to you that we're submitting for certification our free cash stuff on Monday the 12th. And so you should have an idea of what, what free cash resources you have available to you. So on that note, when you look at the overall revenue picture, and I'll just highlight just a couple of the changes between the spring and the spring and now. Local aid is ticked up a percentage point or so, between what you budgeted and what the final outcome was. It was a more favorable outcome for you. Nothing more than an increment, but it's there. You always, as good budgeting practices dictate, you estimate new real estate tax growth very conservatively in the spring. So when you put your revenue budget together for your your June town meeting, you went with a $75,000 figure. Now, the free cash isn't going to be certified until the end of September, maybe the beginning of October. New growth is a net tax value of all new real estate that's come on the books in the last in the last year. I have communicated with the assessing department on a couple of occasions, and that's the best date that I can get out of them. But that's really a critical part of going to town meeting and ultimately setting the tax rate post-town meeting. But when I said earlier, all the ducks, we're lining everybody up in a row, we're doing just that. New growth, I calculated the new growth average for the last 3 fiscal years, and it's averaged about $268,000 to $270,000 or so. I don't know how you treat that. What your custom is for treating that at town meeting, at your fall town meeting, but that's out there. So free cash is going to become apparent, and you can evaluate what resources you have and address the articles that I just rattled off there. And as for what the tax rate and new growth is going to be, well, Jennifer and others will let you know. Articles 10 and 11. I've gone back and forth with Leslie and Fay on this. Leslie has a pretty good argument for saying that this is premature to appear on this warrant article. And I told her, as the accountant, I understand why you would say that, because we've all been reading the same material. But I said, I have a political calculation here. And that calculation is this, that the Board of Selectmen has made it very clear to me that they want accountability in expending these proceeds. There's really only 2 paths here for us. In the path that can help ensure that the money ultimately, when it's ready for spending, goes to opioid prevention activities, is the creation of a special purpose stabilization fund for that purpose at this time. Okay? And what I needed was to have a public discussion about this, that I was not going to retreat from that charge that the selectmen made for accountability on the expenditure of those funds. If I said, after I leave, if the general consensus is we'll address it in the spring, fine. But in the springtime, when it comes up, I want everybody's head nodding, saying, "Oh yeah, that's right, we postponed this in the fall," instead of just letting this thing die here and now. We did speak at a prior meeting or two that there was pending legislation that the legislature has not picked up. I've since identified the bill. It was Governor Baker's filed in late May, a supplemental budget bill, and embedded in that is relief, Chapter 44, Section 53, relief. And if that passes at some point in time, even in an informal session, if that passes, that'll be a better vehicle for you than a special purpose stabilization fund. It will, so so you may or may not wish to postpone that, but I told Leslie that I needed to talk about it publicly, before I went. So do with it what you will.
Do we still have the ability to not draw down on that money?
Without losing it.
Without losing it.
To my knowledge, yes.
That's the big thing.
Yes. I did consult with town council on that back, a meeting or two ago, probably, not quite a month ago, but yeah, I'm not in fear presently of losing any of that.
So, this is we're talking about spanning a fiscal year before we do anything. So we have the ability to adopt this in the spring and not span that fiscal year if we are going to lose it, and make it effective and draw it down before the first of the year. So as long as that answer doesn't change,
Yep.
that we can just leave it and I mean, if we went this route, could we turn around and spend it this fiscal year? Or will we have to wait till next fiscal year anyway?
In no case, either by special purpose stabilization fund or taking in the money in fiscal '23 as a general fund receipt, letting it close out to free cash.
So we couldn't spend it no matter
Okay,
what.
you cannot spend any of this until July 1, 2023. We're clear on that.
Okay. So my recommendation then is we don't lose anything by waiting till the spring and not putting these on.
So I would say that we
second
just
that.
wait till the town administrator comes in.
That's fine.
And then Leslie
Yep,
maybe,
yep.
because she advises to wait, so, I mean, we're just looking at it now anyway, right?
She advises to wait until the spring.
I don't know if the finance committee will have any input on this when they meet with us at our next meeting, but I agree that there's no reason to,
Right.
Yeah.
We could pass over in the town meeting too, right?
no, we wouldn't even put it on the.
Yeah, we mean,
It's too
we got a month
confusing if
before we have to make that, no,
Yeah,
3
we
weeks.
have time to keep it off of the warrant.
Yeah. But I'm satisfied that I identified a pathway for you, an accountability pathway for you. So my job is done on those 2 articles. Community Preservation Fund is Article 12. Article 15, we've already talked about 13, 14, and
There's two.
15. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 15s. So that should be, the Disability Commission has proposed a bylaw. It is, I did look at our bylaws, and I guess we're silent on the matter. In their bylaw proposal is pretty vanilla. I don't think there's, if I may, to Mr. Crowley, I've read the text of the proposed disability bylaw, and it's pretty straightforward.
Copy paste from another town.
I have no doubt, but I didn't see any flags myself, but you guys can debate that 2 weeks from now. And in Article 16 is the acceptance of the provisions of Mass General Laws. It's not 59.
No, it should be Chapter 40, Section 22G.
Chapter 40, Section 22G, which is the, where proceeds from parking fines, handicap parking fines, would go into this fund for use by the Disability Commission. You know what? The Disability Commission works hard. They ask for something. Practically speaking, we're talking about very short money. But, it is.
I don't even know where we have.
If at all, if you get any.
It is what it is. So that's what what did we call this agenda item? Preliminaries. So there are the preliminaries, but systemically, we're set to move, Mr. Chairman. Well, you're set to move.
So you had lumped together Article 13 with the other articles. Article 13 is not related to that. That is the...
Oh, that's the assessed, yeah.
That's
Okay.
the sales tax revenue from the marijuana.
Oh,
That's what that article is. So that
That's-
automatically goes into a special fund, and we have to take that out to reduce the tax rate.
Thank you. That's the second time I've been reminded. I think the FinCom chairman advised me of that. That's a local thing. I had no idea. Yeah.
No, we did it
Thank you for-
first. We did
Thank
it
you for
first. We're
correcting
hoping
me.
other people will follow.
Yeah, thank you for correcting me. Yeah.
Any more questions? No. Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda, APRA request for Park Facilities Committee for Mixed Field project.
So, if I may, this was a vote of the Parks Facilities Committee. Right now, we have available $802,000 to complete the Mixter project. There's $652,000 was from the CPC funds. $150,000 was in the just-passed state budget. We were given a cost estimate. There were 3 different layouts. The cost estimate from the preferred layout back in February was $970, I'm just going to use round numbers, $978,000. Per the architect that did the estimates, he said to add $37,000 to that because of the time that has passed, which is 5%. There was also a hard estimate for $3,410 for engineering study. There is a drainage pipe that is outside the footprint of the site. It goes out into the road, and unless you tell me something different, we don't have any as-built on that still. We don't know where that goes, right?
I have provided what I have. I think it was constructed, if I'm not mistaken, 15 or 20 years ago. But no, I don't have any
So
ones.
the engineering estimate or proposal on that was $3,410. The unknown estimate, our architect said in an email, conservatively use $50,000 for site drainage improvements. We really don't know what that number is because that's what that engineering study is going to show us. But if we add all those numbers together, we have a shortfall to do this project right and do the better layout of $262,337. If we take out the unknown $50,000, the $50,000, which is really an unknown number, the shortfall is $212,337 plus whatever it is to fix that drainage. In order to do this project right and move forward, that's the number that we're looking for. This is, the cost escalations are a result of COVID, partially a result of ARPA funds being available, which caused the price of everything to skyrocket. So I think this is an appropriate use of the ARPA funds, and I'm asking for this board to go along with that recommendation.
So we'll take a motion and then we'll go for the discussion. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to allocate $262,337 from ARPA funds to the Mixter Field project.
I second.
We have motion and second. Further discussion?
Well, I think the project should be put on the back burner. $1 million field that I don't feel is needed. There's no one banging at our door saying we need this field. We have a track that for 10 years we've been talking about repairing. It's only getting worse every day. We have Woodland tennis courts that are unusable. The field at Woodland is underwater, needs drainage issues. A and B field still has issues. We have all of these projects that need money, and we're gonna spend $1 million. It's already a field. It's a baseball field and a soccer field. It's been those. Sure, it's wet sometimes, but it's not used all the time. It's empty more than it's used. To spend $1 million on that field, I don't know what they're putting there, but I just think we should put this project on the back burner. We have the 150 from the state, maybe do some work to help a little, but $1 million for a field when we have all of these issues, definitely not ARPA money. I don't even want to use any money for $1 million field. I just don't think we're in the position to do that. That's my thought.
I'll second that motion.
It wasn't, but I guess
my only concern is all the other things that you brought up, the two fields up there, the track, Woodland, all of those projects. I believe there was a big master plan done for the parks a few years ago, and that also got shut down, and that wasn't funded. So if we shut this one down too, we've actually done no work to any of the fields at all in the entire town, and there's no plan to do any work. And I mean, if the board is okay with that, that just says to anyone with children in the town that use those fields, we're not putting money into any of it, and we haven't in I don't know how many years.
Well, I disagree that no work has been done on the fields. We have the Parks Commission, the Parks Department and the DPW do work on the fields all the time.
No, that's maintenance. You're talking about track repairs, water, drainage.
This is
I would ask for that.
all way before Mixter. These projects all are in the place. And again, I don't think we're shortchanging the residents of this town. That is currently a field. It's a Little League field and it's a soccer field. We've been playing on that field for years. yes, it gets water, and it gets, so once, twice a year, when we have heavy rainstorms, it's an issue.
That field has not been used in the last several years.
Because we've been talking about $1 million,
hasn't
we've been
been
talking about a couple $100,000
It hasn't
renovation.
been used because it was unusable.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not usable
The
now.
Parks Commission has said it's an unusable
It
field.
can't be used by anyone.
Even, I mean, during construction, they were digging trenches across.
Right now, it's unusable, so that's why I'm concerned.
I don't know if it's unusable.
That the Parks Commission, that field is not used. The Parks Commission worked with the Parks Facilities Committee and identified this as the most pressing need in the town.
This is perfect to use the 150 we got from the state to make it usable. Maybe fix the infield, the Little League field, and fix I mean, I've walked it many times. It's in good enough shape now. Fix some of the issues if there are
Bumps.
bumps or anything like that. But $1 million for this field, I'd much rather put $1 million
The other
into any of
Well,
those
they're
projects.
not actually up in front of anyone, so that's why I'm just wondering where are those projects at.
This project has been funded to the tune of $800,000.
So I wouldn't strip that away.
We're not,
No, the 600 could just go, the 652 could just go back to CPC
Well,
for a future project.
there's not 652 anymore. Mostly, all of, the vast majority of the architectural work has been completed, and that contract is in place. We've hired an architect.
So so we could take that out of the 150 and give the 652 back to CPC. The 150 is for that park. So I agree that we need to do work on fields, but we need to do work on the maintenance of the fields that need the work, not $1 million field that we're going to have.
You keep saying $1 million field. Any project that we do from this point forward is million or multi-million. You can't look at that number and say, oh my God, it's $1 million.
I cannot say that. I can't say that that's the case. That's this current case.
Prices are never going to
Okay,
go down.
then that might be more the reason. I don't know if prices are never going down. These are all
They haven't-
assumptions. You're making assumptions.
But you're
Every
making
time we do a
assumptions.
project, the price goes up. We have prevailing wage, and there's no way around that.
Okay, that's my stand.
So, I mean, if you don't think this field needs to be the field that we work on, that's one thing, but if you're scoffing at the price, that's the new normal.
Both. Yep.
The million,
Well, there are Parks Commission members that were against this, and they have plans in place that they can get this done cheaper.
They were
I don't
going to do
know.
it themselves, though.
I don't know what they're going to do. I'm just saying that's what I've been told. That's fine.
that's the ask of the Parks Facilities Committee.
I don't think this is, and then ARPA is, I mean, I don't think it's the time.
The only thing I would say is if there was another project in front of us, I'm also thinking of what's currently happening at Pride Park and the amount of money we're spending on that. That's a real number. That's a real project. And the DPW, unfortunately, somehow got assigned to move these. If we had to actually hire a company to do this, that would have been even more money. But by not voting for this, you now in turn have not invested any money into any parks in the entire town, and you have no project currently in place or priority to invest any money into any of the parks. I just say that to the board because that's a real thing for the residents. I know a lot of you don't have children in the town, but that's something that says to the people that do have children and use those fields, they're not a priority. And that's as simple as it is.
Okay, and I don't see people banging at our doors saying the parks and the fields are not, they're working fine. Little League uses them.
They
3
don't
nights-
use them though, Chris. He just told that
No,
park hasn't
the
been
fields
used in
they
years.
use, then they're empty 3 nights a week. The soccer uses all the fields. I mean, no one's banging at our door saying we need this. I hear it's
Is
going to
there
be a
a door to
softball field.
bang?
It's going to be a softball field. I think that's what they're building now.
It can be used, yes, for softball. Softball can use it, as can Little League.
Oh, it's going to be for both uses? Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I haven't changed.
I think, even some other, not one, more than one members of the Parks Committee, they said there is an alternate. So maybe, Park Facilities Committee, now it's a chance, either use whatever the money we have, or just go back to the drawing board again, use an alternate. Local contractors, we can use it and we can make it.
There is no, the price is the price. There is no magic local contractor that's going to come in and do something cheaper. You have to go out to bid, you have to pay prevailing wage. To say we're going to be able to do this and do it right, cheaper than we're currently being presented now or in the future is not going to happen.
And I read the minutes.
It's not going to happen.
The two people that suggested this, it started with they could do it for $60,000, and then the next time they spoke, they could do it for $210,000. They're not going to bid. They're going to do it themselves at the field. Two individuals that think they can do the maintenance and put a field and drainage in the mixer. So that means they're going to put that in and not go to bid. Last time I checked, we actually legally can't do that. So they can't go out and put that in, and they cannot go out and touch drainage. So if that's what you're saying, those two folks, because I read those minutes, legally, we cannot do that. And I would hope to God this board would not have two citizens putting in drainage into a street over there, just for the residents alone that live there, because that would just be inappropriate and dangerous.
Okay, I don't know if these guys were gonna go out and dig the street up themselves. I don't know what the story was.
I know,
just
but
there
you're
was
bringing
some.
it up as a
What the
logical.
DPW can do work on those fields without having to go out to bid. No, I mean, I'm not saying he's gonna do it, but they can do it without going out to bid.
They can't put drainage in. You can ask them. They cannot do the work that's needed at that field. You're trying to find another solution and make one up out of thin air.
Yeah, why was it making one up?
But you can ask him, he's here. He can't put that type of work in. We don't even have the staff right now to do, I feel bad, the project that we're currently somehow doing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, so any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Shocking, Mark. Very shocking.
Motion did not pass.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you guys said.
I'm just shocked.
No, we're not going to have the park done.
Yep.
So the next item on the agenda, old businesses. Update on Department of Housing and Community Development, multifamily zoning requirements for MBTA communities. So I can speak on that a little bit, and then I can let.
No, please
So
do, Mr.
there is some information came out. It was during a CMRPC, one of those meetings, they did talk about what are the communities, how soon we need to adopt zoning bylaws and other things. So one of the person who can speak on this is CMRPC, Chris Settle. So maybe, we can push this to the next meeting, so we could invite her, and then she could give more on this. And also, at this time, even she is not familiar with all the details, so she's still waiting for those informations.
Oh, she's already been here once to speak to us, right?
Not
Is that
on
the
this.
person?
Yeah.
Yeah, she came originally came.
Yeah, but
I
this
have no need, I have personally, if the board wants to bring her back to talk about it, I just wanted to know where it stood and, if there's anything, because we were talking about getting together with all the other communities our size and with the same issues, not our size, but with the same issues as us, that we don't have an MBTA station in town. So that's all I was wondering where that stood.
Right.
I don't need her.
As I understand it through you, Mr. Chairman, as I understand it, she appeared here while the amendment to 40A Section 3 had been enacted, but rulemaking was just beginning or was in process. And the difference between then and now is that now the rules have been rolled out. There was a public comment period, cities and towns weighed in, the MMA weighed in, regional planning agencies weighed in, and there were some differences between the earlier version, not of the legislation, but of the rules to carry it out, and today. And the governor's office likes to say that they were responsive to, local needs and changed some things up. Where exactly, I'm not going to pretend to know, but CMRPC is assigned teams of people and assigned, individual staff people. I think your correspondence may well show that one party has responsibility for 4 or 5 towns. I guess their expectation is that they'll schlep out to cities and towns on request for clarification on some of these things, either at planning board meetings or selectmen meetings, whatever the heck wherever the request comes from. So it's out there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If we need her here to give us an update, I have no problem with that, but that's between.
That would be,
Yeah, you can figure that out, we can figure.
That would be your choice.
Yep.
Thank you.
And Raj, I think you and Mark are on the planning board, right? Yeah, so maybe you guys want to do it, instead. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, your report.
Just a summary. I know I can sound like a broken record sometimes, but I'll repeat some things. Mr. Chairman, my town administrator's report is just a summary. This is 14 weeks. This is 14 weeks now. And I'd first like to thank the Board of Selectmen for bringing me back to West Boylston. And I thank you for your guidance and in cooperation in this 14-week exercise. At the point of hiring, we mutually agreed that my work program would emphasize oversight of the day-to-day general government operations, obviously, and facilitation of 3 transactions. The transitions from fiscal 22 to fiscal 23. Earlier tonight, I gave you another report. I hope you're comfortable with where we stand there. Fire department leadership in the office of town administrator. With respect to the day-to-day operations, I'll repeat my often stated observation that you do have competent department heads and reports who know their jobs. I know this because I've watched them, afforded them certain latitudes, and supported them at appropriate times, and when necessary, redirected their efforts. And though not perfect, I think it's fair to say that things have gone relatively smoothly. In much of the credit, and this is not a courtesy nod here, guys, much of the credit should be bestowed upon your municipal assistant, Faye Zakowski, who's performed at a top-tier level. I've done this 13 times. She's as close to that, to the top, filling in, all the gaps. I'm a 3-day-a-week, person. Her role has expanded during that period of time. Some of the duties I trust that she's taken off will become a permanent part of her job as well. She's executed that well. Her prior years of municipal experiences, are a real asset to the town. She loves the work, and she competently interacts with the public, the select board, the town administrator, departments and boards and committees, in the rank and file. So I just wanted to give credit where credit is due. And I've seen her do that simultaneously in many instances. And that's not always easy. She's the first point of contact in this office, and she's managed that function very well. As reported tonight and in previous meetings, the fiscal year changeover and the fire administrative transition are proceeding seamlessly. And the more people see of your fire chief and interact with your fire chief, the more impressed they become. I look forward to your working with Chief Mark Sadowski. So, and I'm reporting to you for, I think, the first time on the town administrator transition. Jennifer Warren Diamond officially begins service to the town next Monday, September 12th, but she's been immersed in all things West Boylston for some time. I don't know if I said this earlier tonight, but she and I have met twice for a combined total of 10 hours going over everything West Boylston. She's met with Faye for her transition meeting. We've given her an email address last week. We're flooding her with current items. She has been linked to the FinCom chair and others. She's current with our fall meeting, our fall town meeting discussions, all of those items. And she has knowledge of, at least as I and Faye have reported to her, all the front burner issues that there are out there right now. So I think we've given enough of ourselves so far that she really, to cliche this thing, she'll be able to hit the ground running on Monday. And unless some emergency occurs between now and Monday, when Monday morning when she is officially seated, Mr. Chairman, this is my final act tonight as your interim town administrator. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. So, as we heard, it's going to be Jim's final day today, last day.
This is it.
Thank you so much. On behalf of the Select Board, I would like to thank you for taking care of this 14 weeks as an interim town administrator.
Thank you. I like the town, Mr. Chairman.
Is that anyone?
Thank you.
Any comments?
Thank you so much. Thank you again. We've been here before. Thank you again for coming aboard. It was good getting a person.
Yeah.
It was nice getting a person that's already been here once, so he didn't have to come in and really, he knew where everything was when he came in. There might have been just some new faces, but yeah.
It may
great
not
job.
be the last time.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Hopefully it'll be the last time.
I think Mr. Crowley and Mr. Ruccio was seated on the board. Well, I know you were.
Yeah.
You're the two holdovers from 7 years ago. Yeah.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks.
The next one is future agenda items and the Select Board reports. Anyone?
I got nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing. So,
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
yeah, motion and second.
I'm done.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.